Hi folks, Dr. Steve Bills with TeleMeMD. I'm here with Tim Alley, who is a friend of mine that I've gotten to know over the course of several months here. And I think there's a lot of things that Tim, as an attorney and kind of doing what you do, can really add to the mix in terms of our overall health. Typically, when people think of health, they think of going to the doctor and paying for things in insurance and what my deductibles are and things like that. But there's a lot more to our longevity. There's a lot more to planning than just the health side. So if it's okay with you, I'd just like to talk a little bit about what Tim can do and find out what he does and how we can do it.
All right. So my name is Tim Alley, and I work at the Chamberlain Law Group office in Perrysburg, Ohio. And our office is focused on estate planning. We don't do litigation. We don't do the dog bite cases. We don't do the car injury cases. We don't do divorces. We don't do any of those things. We stay focused on estate planning. And as Dr. Bill said, you might ask, what does estate planning have to do with health? Well, a lot. And part of the health side of that is one of the big things that comes up is that when clients come into the office, many times they will say, we've been thinking about this for years. It's been on our to-do list. We've been needing to do it. We've been needing to do it, but it always falls to the bottom of the list.
Right.
And so it's always sitting in the back of people's minds. And the biggest comment that I receive at the end of the process, end of the first phase of the process is, this is such a relief to have it done.
Yes.
It's just a sense of that weight that it's gone, that there's actually a plan. And Dr. Bills, you know that anytime we can relieve stress, it helps with overall health.
Absolutely.
So we're trying to relieve that stress, make that sort of go away as much as possible so that people can have a more enjoyable life.
What a concept to have some plan and some safety and the knowledge that you are prepared.
Right.
That can relieve a lot of stress in our lives.
Right.
So I'm going to ask you a little bit more, a couple other questions, if that's okay.
Yep.
So, what is estate planning?
Most people think of estate planning as, I'm going to go get my will done. And that is part of it. That can definitely be part of estate planning. But estate planning encompasses much more than that. Estate planning covers powers of attorney, healthcare powers of attorney. It also encompasses long-term care planning. It also encompasses business planning. And one of the pieces that many times individuals don't think about is the process that we call asset alignment. Asset alignment is taking your assets, whatever they be, whether they be a house, cars, bank accounts, real estate, investment accounts, annuities, a business, whatever it is, those assets that you have, and actually putting ownership and beneficiary on those accounts so that they align with the overall estate plan. If you've done whatever estate plan you've done, then those assets need to align with that plan so that it all works together as one. So estate planning encompasses more than just doing a will. It encompasses your other assets. It encompasses planning for not just right now, but also the future, and also making sure that there's someone there to manage your life, both financial and health, if you are not able to do that. So that's sort of the overall what is estate planning. That would be it's basically putting down a plan for the what ifs and eventualities of life.
Perfect. So is estate planning different than, say, creating a trust?
Creating a trust can be part of an estate plan, but it is not the complete portion of estate planning. So a trust and a will and a power of attorney, those are all documents that are part of an estate plan. But the estate plan itself is looking at your assets, looking at your life, looking at your family, looking at your goals for how you want to live life and what sort of legacy you want to leave, and saying, what do I want and how am I going to accomplish that? And being able to put the plan in place that's actually going to make that happen. So that's a trust is part of estate planning, or can be, but is not necessarily all of the estate plan.
Gotcha. So there are obviously certain documents that need to be part of that overall plan. What type of documents should be part of an estate plan?
Every good estate plan is going to have at least a financial power of attorney, sometimes referred to as a general durable power of attorney, a healthcare power of attorney, which is for someone to be able to make healthcare decisions for you if you can't, a HIPAA authorization, which is allowing individuals to be able to access your healthcare information, to be able to communicate that if you can't communicate it to them. And in many cases, a living will, and for most people, a will. There are very, very few people that I would find that would not need a will of some kind.
Sure.
So those are sort of the basic documents that can also include things like a trust. It can include a care agreement. It can include business documents of different kinds. There's a lot of other documents that can come into play, but those are sort of the basic documents that everybody should be looking to have.
Yeah, and I think one of the problems is that when people think of power of attorney, they think that the durable power of attorney and the healthcare power of attorney are the same thing. And they're very different, aren't they?
Yes, very different. A general durable power of attorney, despite its name, it says general and durable. However, the what's referred to as a general durable power of attorney is focused on your financial life. Mm-hmm. And so anything to deal with finances or assets of some kind. And a healthcare power of attorney is just what it says. It's focused on your health and management of your medical situation. And while Ohio has a basic form that they use for healthcare power of attorney, there are some additional information and some additional discussions that need to go along with that.
Sure.
And part of that is when you decide who is that person or persons are going to be who are going to be your agents, mm-hmm. you need to have a conversation with them about what your desires are for your healthcare. Right. And part of that is getting down into the nitty-gritty of how important is it to you to be able to stay in your own home? Mm-hmm. How important is pain control? How important is having people around you? Do you know where you want to live if you can't live at home? Is there a nursing facility? Is there an assisted living? Is there some place that you know you want to go? What are your religious beliefs and desires? Making sure that agent is aware of that and what is important to you. So all of these discussions go into that healthcare power of attorney, and there's a document that I use to provide to my clients to answer a lot of these questions, to facilitate that conversation. Because what I find too often is individuals have appointed a healthcare power of attorney, but that person really doesn't know details about what
exactly
somebody wants. And that's very important.
Speaking as a physician, I can also say that many times, although sometimes those things are in place, the doctor doesn't know. Correct. And I think it's important to have those type of conversations with the doctor. And in fact, having that conversation with the doctor can take a lot of load off the family because, let's face it, people don't like to talk about this kind of thing. It's an uncomfortable sort of thing. I remember when my parents first brought this up to me, and I'm like, yeah, I don't want to talk about it. But how important it is and how important it was when we got further on in our experience to have those things discussed and know what the plan was ahead of time.
Absolutely. And that's part of why I always encourage clients, take your healthcare documents, give them to your physician, and as much conversation as you can have it. Help them to understand. That's a very good point.
Yeah, absolutely. So, all right, so they have the conversations and they develop these documents. Is that it? Is that all they need to do?
And that's part of that's a big thing that most individuals think. I've gone in, I've talked to the attorney, we've created the plan, we've executed the documents, I'm done. Well, just like almost any other plan, it goes well until it meets life.
Yeah.
And every plan has to be able to be adjusted and changed over time. What you desire and what your interests are and how your family interacts and what your life looks like today is not what it's going to look like in 10 years or 15 or 20.
Sure.
And what we find is that individuals who go through and review and update their plan on a yearly basis never really end up having to make significant changes to their plan, because they're making small changes as they occur.
Right.
If you wait 5 years, 10 years, 15 years between looking at your plan, what tends to happen is that individuals look at their plan and they go, what was I thinking? That doesn't reflect anything of what I wanted to have happen. And so then they end up making massive changes. It's much more costly. And they're scrapping a plan that they did before to do a new plan. When if there had been an ongoing conversation and having a relationship with your estate planning attorney and reviewing it on a regular basis, it doesn't have to be much. A 5-10 minute conversation, sometimes just a phone call is enough. But when you have that conversation, when you do that review, what I find is that there are questions that come up, and I can answer those questions, and we can say, yes, that's a great question. No, that's something you don't need to be worried about right now, but we're going to keep that on the radar, and we'll look at it again next year. And at some point in time, because that conversation is ongoing, you know when to make a change.
Sure.
When to bring more family into the conversation, when to turn over management of certain assets, when to move out of home and move into someplace else, when to downsize. There's so many different questions that just need an ongoing conversation.
Absolutely. One question that I think of when we have a conversation like this is there any danger in waiting? Is there any danger in saying waiting till something happens? Does that make it more difficult to do the planning?
It does. And part of that comes into play because when there's an event, let's say a stroke, we're in Stroke Awareness Month. If there's a stroke, a heart attack, something sudden that occurs, many times the individual, me, if it happens to me, then the individual is not able to make decisions.
Right.
And if they can't make decisions, then they can't do the planning. And that they may need somebody to be able to make decisions. And if you've done your planning in advance and you have the healthcare power of attorney, you have the financial power of attorney in play, you have the will, the trust, whatever it is, then you can avoid the court system.
Amen.
And none of us wants to go into court if we don't have to.
Absolutely.
It's like, I'm here from the government and I'm here to help you. Well, not so much.
Talk about stress, right?
Talk about increasing stress for you and your family. So if you have those powers of attorney in place and they are up to date and are solid documents, then you can avoid the necessity of a guardianship, either personal or financial, and you can avoid the whole process and the delay in actually making decisions. From your perspective, Dr. Bills, you understand that a delay in healthcare decisions can cause irreparable harm.
Absolutely.
And so in estate planning, if there's a delay in being able to take an action, either financially or from a healthcare perspective, if there's a delay in that process, it can cause irreparable harm to the finances, to the health of an individual. And so having a plan in place where your agent can act right away can make all the difference in the world.
Absolutely. I've seen that firsthand in my family and my experience. It was a wonderful thing for my family members to have had those things in place so that we could automatically go to the next step. And there wasn't a timeout while we had to go to probate or get guardianship or things like that. And I've seen others go through that. So not only is it helpful from a monetary standpoint and a time standpoint,
Right.
but it also, there's something wonderful about having a plan and knowing what the person's wishes are in those situations, so that there's no questions and there's no feelings of guilt or hard feelings among the family trying to do what they think is best, as long as we know what was best for them.
Right.
So you mentioned a couple things earlier that you don't focus on. Are there advantages to having an estate planning attorney that just does those kinds of things?
Yes, one of the things that is a benefit of having an attorney focus is, just like if you're going to a doctor and you need something about your heart, you don't go to a general practice attorney to do heart surgery. You don't go to a brain surgeon to do an amputation. Or something like that. There are specialties and there are reasons for that. Estate planning attorneys will have an ability to focus and to be able to come up with questions and ask questions and see issues that a general practitioner will not. The individual who does litigation knows litigation. I would never presume to take somebody into litigation because there are too many details, too many small things that need to be done that I'm not aware of. I don't do it all the time. And so an estate planning attorney is going to be able to identify, to be able to ask the right questions, to be able to identify issues, and to be able to say, now is the time to do something, or you should actually think about this issue when just by a conversation that's being had. So often I have seen individuals come in with documents that were created by an attorney that was a general practitioner. They did the best that they could. I'm not trying to get down on them at all. However, there are holes and there are issues and there are problems with the documents because they don't accomplish everything that the individual wanted to accomplish. They leave out vital pieces, and so then it just makes the process so much more difficult than it had to be.
Yeah, I'm sure that there are nuances even in state law, depending on where you're at, that would also affect this as well. And you guys have a deeper understanding of tax code and things like that as it applies to this type of planning as well, correct?
Correct. Now, just like any, if you go into a medical field, there's a team of individuals that are going to be helping with your overall health. In estate planning, there's also a team. You have your attorney, which we do the legal side of things. We also encourage individuals, you need to have a CPA that's going to be able to help you with the details of tax planning. You need to have a financial advisor that can help you with the details of investing and life insurance and those types of things. And sometimes there are other professionals that you need as well. Sometimes a specific insurance individual or an income planner. So this team of individuals, depending on your particular situation, is vital, and that team needs to work together and have communication so that that team can really look out for your best interest. Because I know enough about taxes to be able to give very generalized information, but if I try to go deeper than that, I'm going to get myself in trouble.
Sure.
And I'm going to give bad advice. So talking to that CPA is very beneficial. Same thing with investing. I know the terms, but I don't know the details.
Sure. So the other way to look at this is, because of your position, you have people in your team that you can easily refer to that can easily help with people and their goals to getting things put in the right places.
Correct. Absolutely.
That's
Absolutely.
fantastic. Well, tell me a little bit about how someone could get a hold of you. Do you have a website? Do you have an email? Is there a phone number? How do people get a hold of you to find out more about your services?
If they look up Chamberlain Law Group in Perrysburg, Ohio, they'll find us. We do have a website. We have a Facebook page. You can call the office at 419-872-7670, and our staff will be happy to set up a time, send you some information, and we can get the conversation started. You can also email us, and if you go to our website, our email addresses are on there. You can reach out to us that way. But yeah, just starting that conversation, individuals can set up the appointment, come in. There's no cost to have that starting conversation. It's just as we call it, a discovery meeting. So we can discover a little bit about you. You can discover a little bit about us and about the overall options. Our office takes a three-step approach to planning. There's the discovery, there's the design, which is where we know we figured out what you want overall. You know what who we are, and then we talk about exactly the specifics of how you want to design your plan, what the details are, the who, what, where, when, why. And then the third step is the actual creation and execution of the documents from there. So that's that. But that first meeting, that sit down, is just a discovery meeting where you get to learn about us and we learn about you.
That's fantastic. I'm sure it's person dependent or family dependent on how you look at it, but is this necessarily something that takes years and years of planning, or is this what's the time frame for something like that?
Typically, we find that we can, from the first time somebody comes in, from their first appointment until their documents are all signed, is typically anywhere from about 3 to 4 weeks. The overall plan to the completion of the plan until it gets into the maintenance phase is usually anywhere from about 2 months to 3 months, somewhere in that
Excellent
time frame.
Well, listen, we've covered a lot of interesting topics. Sometimes these are things that nobody wants to talk about, but is incredibly important in our overall walk through life and knowing what's going to happen, and as best as we can plan for the future can really make a difference in our overall psyche and our health and our mental health and our stress levels. And I highly encourage people to do this type of planning. I appreciate the time I've had with you here, and we look forward to continuing to work with you in the future. Guys, if you have not had a chance to set something like this up with someone, I highly recommend this fine guy here.
Thank you, Dr. Mills.
No problem. Thanks for spending the time this afternoon, for the facilities, and letting us do this. Tim, you're a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you.